Welcome to MegaNet Gaming, and today's review is going to be the last cartridge I currently have available in my current slowly being rebuilt NES collection, and that is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves was developed around the time of the movie release by Sculptured Software, published by Virgin Games, and it was released in North America in November 1991 and Europe on December 10th of 1992. So basically it's a game where it's somewhat of a linear action RPG with some other game modes interspersed within. It opens in a prison in Jerusalem. You have some party members that you help escape, and throughout the game you can equip certain weapons you find, and also make other changes to your party members. So it has some basic RPG mechanics. But anyway, when you escape the prison, get back to England, you find out that Robin finds out his father's been murdered. The sheriff of Nottingham is ruling England in an oppressive way. So you go to Sherwood Forest, you find some other people, set up a basic home base, and then you travel from camp to take on various missions. Let's go ahead and get this game loaded up. Here's the game. I'm going to start off with a major complaint about the game. There's neither a password system nor a save system, which is one reason why it's taken me so long to finish this game. You end up with a menu you can pull up where you have different options to choose from. There's talk, look, take, search, and player will let you change stats on the player. Here's a very simple example of the combat. A lot of times you do have to be like right on top of something in order to pick search to find what you need. There's also certain things that you end up needing to actually trigger certain piece of conversation to allow it to unlock. Now this one I would have found out about the key talking to Azim over here. But in my experience it hasn't let me actually go out the passage. So most of the game is played from this perspective. Problem is it is a bit clunky. You have to have everything lined up just right to be able to hit. But over time you'll figure out how you can line up everything just right where you can hit and then also miss most of the attacks. Then you have this side-scrolling combat thing, which is usually against people with weapons that have a longer reach than yours. And it plays very clunky. And I just died. I wasn't paying attention to the health bar. And then when you start over, since there's no password feature, you have to go back through all the dialogue again, collect items. It is short enough where if you've played the game before, you could make it through in one sitting, albeit it would be a rather long sitting. But if you haven't played this game before and you're playing it much like most RPGs are played, where you might make it through a few sections, and you go back to the next day to play some more, you're pretty much stuck just leaving the Nintendo on, which is how I ended up beating this as a kid. I just left the Nintendo on. Environments, and it's a Nintendo game. They really don't look terrible for being on the Nintendo. At the same time though, this is when the Super Nintendo is already released. Now let's go into this with a bit more preparation. You can end up on top of people. This is by far the worst part of the game, is this little side-scrolling sequence. Controls like garbage. And it's just gets in the way. As far as the sound and music, it's acceptable for a Nintendo game. It's nothing is so atrocious where it gets in the way. Alright, so this time I'm going to take it seriously so I can get into the... There's also a mode where you're actually like... It's kind of like a... horizontal scrolling horse racing portion of the game. Which isn't... You only have to do it, I think, once, maybe twice. It's not that big of a deal. And it's still better than a little combat from the side, like it's some type of really poorly executed fighting game sequence. A lot of times you just end up like spamming the buttons like this. Alright, but anyway, there's besides that, there's, you do get 3 continues. There's a game over screen. This was designed before a lot of the features of the more modern RPGs were refined. More modern as far as from this period in time. So like your Super Nintendo Zelda game, your Shadowrun for the Genesis, and some other classics from the time. So let's get through so I can demonstrate the last little combat sequence. Here's the player screen. You have party, you have hit points, leveling, your stats. You can collect gold. It's ranged weapons. Here's your melee weapons. It really is a game that, if they had a couple more years of knowledge of what constitutes a well-done isometric RPG, and they incorporated what had been learned during that time into this game, this would have been quite the fun game. It's still a fun game. By no means is this going to get that bad of a review score at the end. Here, I'm not messing around this time. We're going to get him. I don't really care about my health. I just need to get far enough where I can demonstrate other game modes. Whenever there's a corpse, I'll always go ahead and search it. Get the torch. Okay, discovered a hidden passage. Oh, I found an apple. Trying to think of what's the way out. It's been a minute since I played this game. I should have read what the way out is. Here's more of the combat. I think Zelda 1 executed more poorly. Or if Zelda for NES is before your time, I think Diablo from ancient times also more poorly executed. Don't let me continue. Doing this on emulator just for ease of recording. This game actually controls quite a bit better with the NES controller. I remember right, it's this way to get out. I think. And then you have this overhead combat mode, which is where I just have to hit everybody just once. It controls very slow and clunky. And no matter how this plays out, it's going to tell you that Peter's mortally wounded. You know, you see he fought just fine and wasn't even really hurt. And you have a little story sequence of the text, and here you are in the main world. So Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Kind of an action-adventure overhead view game with RPG elements. Tried to be creative at the time, I'll give them that. And it is a fun game. Or at least it was fun when I played it back in the day and more recently. And I admit there is a bit of nostalgia that's influencing the review. But the game's a lot of thrown together ideas for games tied together with the Robin Hood plot in this world. And really the only one that works well is just your standard over the head view that you're in most of the time, where you explore, attack. RPG elements for a Nintendo game are acceptable, but finding different weapons does help, but as far as the rest of the mechanics are quite a bit lacking. The hit detection and having to line up all your attacks in a very specific way, which after playing it for long enough you'll figure out how to line up the attacks. It just adds a lot of clunkiness to it. It's a game that could have been one of the greats had it just focused on the core game, maybe fleshed out the story a bit more and made the combat less clunky. Instead of having the horse racing scene and that weird like overhead mode where you're ambushed and you get the P-stick figures in the party. Especially the from the side, like you're doing a really lousy version of Street Fighter with weapons, the one-on-one fighting part of the game. It looks terrible, and it doesn't control all that well either, and it just seems out of place. But what this game does well, which is help you get immersed in the story of Robin Hood, it does well enough. It's one of those games, if you're really into Robin Hood, or you like collecting movie license games, there are much worse games out there than this one. But this one just, it has a lot of potential that you can see in it, but for all of its potential, it has broken mechanics, unnecessary extra game modes, and other issues that hinder its total presentation. So I'm going to give the game, I'm going to give it a 5.5 out of 10. I think the good in this game outweighs the bad, and nothing is so broken to render it unplayable. I hate to say this, obviously don't just download a ROM unless you own the actual copy of the game. But playing this on something where you have access to save states is definitely a must, unless you really are going to do a marathon session of this game. And given there's so many other games out there you can play, including just RPGs on the Nintendo, I don't recommend going that route. So if you enjoy action RPGs, enjoy Robin Hood, and have access to something with save states so you can actually save your game, I'd recommend picking this up. It's cheap enough. It's under $10. Or if you just want a game where you can play it for a little bit and you don't mind replaying the same stuff beginning. Or if you want to leave your Nintendo on all the time and hope the system doesn't turn off, you could always go that route. But it's a fun little game. It does some things really well. And for everything it does really well, it does something else. On the polar opposite of the scale, it does very poorly. And it averages out to a net very, very slightly above average experience. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe, and have a great day.